you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hello, Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, there are ladies and that makes official. Welcome to 16 years and 2,400 episodes of the Chris Voss Show. And we need you to refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss One, the TikTokity, and all those great places on the internet. You better do it now. Don't make me pull this car over. I'll come back there. Anyway, guys, we have some amazing young men on the show. We're going to be talking about their hot new book that's hot off the presses. It is called The Difference That Makes the Difference. NLP and the Science of Positive Change. It's out July 8th, 2025 by Josh Davis and Greg Prosmushkin. There we go. So we'll be getting into it with them and some of their experience and what goes into the book. Greg was born in Moscow in 1968. I was born there. And he immigrated to the United States at the age of 11. He grew up in Philadelphia, earned degrees from Drexel University and Temple University of Law, and spent a decade practicing law, securing millions in settlements for clients. Josh Davis is an international best-selling author of 2 Awesome Hours, a PhD, and a certified trainer and master practitioner of NLP. The new book he has helps make NLP simple to understand, accessible, and shares the science to support it. He earned his PhD from Columbia University, where he studied psychology and neuroscience. He's been studying NLP for 25 years and teaching NLP for a decade to individuals, parents, solo entrepreneurs, and everyone else. Welcome to the show. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Doing great.
Outstanding, Chris.
So give us your .coms for you guys. Where do you want to have people find you on the interwebs?
NLPdifference.com. will be the main one. NLPdifference.com.
So give us and did you have anything you want to throw in here, Greg?
No, I think we're here about the book.
Okay.
The book is outstanding, and NLPdifference.com is the website that Josh and I have put together for our readers.
So give us a 30,000 overview, guys, of what's inside your new book. I'll give each of you guys a shot at it.
All right. Well, this is a book about how to be able to make changes very quickly and in a lasting way. Even if you've been struggling to make a change for a long time, let's say you've been wanting to start that business, or you've been trying to get in shape, or you're trying to make some breakthrough in a relationship. Sometimes we want to make a change and we just never are able to. Sometimes we make a change and it changes back. And sometimes it's something that we've never even really tried. There are ways to make all kinds of changes in our life, often more quickly than many people realize, and in lasting ways. And I'll say that everyone who's listening to this has had some things they've tried to change where they haven't been able to, and it might have been a real struggle. We're not saying that it's always easy, but also my guess is everyone listening has had something where one day they just changed in an instant. It's like all of a sudden, you know what? I just got that health scan back, and I actually am going to change the way I eat. Or I had some meaningful conversation with someone. The way they said something made me really shift my thinking, and it stays that way forever. So a lot of people actually have had that. And the thing is, there is a powerful set of tools for very quickly dialing down into what's going to be the difference that makes the difference for each person in their individual context to be able to make that change. These are tools that come from a world most people don't usually turn to. It's the world of psychotherapy, where people have been doing this day in and day out, helping people make these kinds of important changes. And what we've done is to try to take it and democratize it. So outside of that context, we've tried to make it simple for anyone to understand and to apply. We've shown the science behind it. We try to explain it in simple terms. And it's in terms of making it simple to apply, we've gone so far as to, in each chapter, there's just prompts that if you reflect on them, you're applying the tool, even with no background. So that's kind of our goal, is to let people know about and help them use these tools for change that many people just don't know about.
Greg, your thoughts?
Yeah, Josh is a scientist, so he's much more smarter than I am. I've been a lawyer for 30 years, and I've been a business guy for about as long. So this is the way I describe the book. It's a manual for the brain. It's like when we're born, we get this computer in our head that nobody tells us how to use. Not our teacher, not our parents. We just wing it, and we usually get it right after we try everything else that fails. What this book does, it tells us how to use our brain better. And as a result, it makes us better at everything. So that's the way, I describe the book to my friends, to my family in simple terms. It's a way to make your brain more efficient and for you as a result to become better at everything.
And I'm glad you guys did a deep dive on this, where you've got a PhD, Josh. You guys are analyzing the real science of it. In social media since the beginning of social media, when it became huge on Twitter, there's been lots of these NLP coaches that are out there, and it seems like there's a lot of mixed opinions that people have of what NLP is or something, or not really a professional sort of outlook, if that makes any sense to you. It seems like there's a lot of people out there just talking about NLP, saying they're NLP pros, and I've never had one of them convince me of anything. So any of your thoughts on that, of what the difference is between some of the pseudoscience folks out there that we hear about with NLP and what the real science of it is?
I think there's a few things going on. One is that there's a lot of variability in what people can say is needed for you to get certified. And there has been work amongst a number of leaders in NLP globally, especially more recently, to try to kind of hone in on, all right, can we have a common set of standards so that we know that when people are learning things, they're learning them. I think there's also been a handful of people over the years who have tried to use tools from NLP in a manipulative sense, kind of transactionally. Can I just trick someone into doing something?
Pay me some money to...
and of course that's not going to serve anyone long term, but I think that has occasionally left a bad taste. And the thing is, when you have something very powerful, you have to approach it ethically. And so you've got to, so it's sort of like, I think the plus and the minus of it is that people say it's very powerful. In either case, it's just, do you have someone using it ethically or not? That's one thing that we've certainly tried to, point to, give examples of using it ethically, talk about the importance of it and so forth. You mentioned also pseudoscience. NLP, this is an important part of the history. One thing that motivated us as well, it is important that things are supported by science, that it makes sense according to science, and if it doesn't, then you should drop it. And we've been guided by that as well in the book. But early on, nobody was really claiming that NLP was a science, and a lot of where it comes from is studying how great psychotherapists, people in the fields of family therapy, gestalt therapy, hypnotherapy, a lot of things that have come to be called cognitive therapy, how those were done. There was very little research on this stuff back in the 70s, 50 years ago when this was happening. So it wasn't about science yet. What NLP did, the founders of NLP did an exceptionally good job at figuring out what really mattered in what these great change makers were doing so they could teach it to other people. Now, 50 years on, just about everything has been studied, but under different names, because these various forms of therapy have been studied. And that's some of the connection we've made. So for people who do care about the science, this is a great resource. For people who have just vaguely heard about NLP, they don't know what it is, and they said, oh, is that a pseudoscience? That's where some of that history comes from. And I think, you want to find a reputable place that's teaching it, that really does a rigorous job of certifying and making sure people use it ethically. You want to find a book that's going to do the same. And those are some of the things that I think we're helping. One of our aims is to make that be more of just what NLP is in general. That when this book really gets out there, I think it's going to help people really understand what is NLP, how to use it ethically, what does it really encompass, and so forth.
From a science-based background.
As well as the science.
Yeah. Greg, I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
I do, actually. When I went to law school, there used to be a saying, those who can't teach. And And, you see, I agree with you, Chris. You see a lot of these coaches that are NLP coaches on Facebook or Instagram or any other social media. They have never accomplished much in their life other than taking a 90-day course for a couple $100, and now they are NLP coaches. And frankly, I wouldn't let them teach me shit. I mean, that's just me. What you have here with Josh and myself, you have two real guys. Josh is a smart dude, man. He's a PhD. He got his doctorate from Columbia. He knows his shit. I've been a lawyer for 30 years. I've recovered millions for my clients. I've won numerous jury trials. I'm a business guy. I've used this technology to go into business. I had multiple exits. I had an 8-figure exit using this technology. So we are well matched. Josh can tell you how it works. He can give you the theory behind it. He will guide you through it. And I can come in and prove to you that this stuff works because it worked for me. And what NLP says, if it works for me, theoretically it should work for you.
Yeah. You're right. It's in the social media age where things kind of converted this whole sort of I'm an expert in stuff or I'm a guru. I think that's where it started. It started with the Twitter gurus, and I was accused of being one back in the day because we were pretty huge. But we just figured out the system for social media. But there were people who would call themselves gurus, and they were taking on all sorts of ways to coach. And, usually the NLP coaches are like, well, I do NLP coaching, I do crystals, and I do astrology, and what other sort of wacky shit can I come up with? You just be like, oh, crystals or NLP. All right, cool. And we throw a lot of shade at crystals on the show. It's a running callback joke. But so we saw a lot of that, and I would meet the folks, and I'd just be like, like you said, they took a course and stuff. So I'm glad you guys have put out a book on it that deepens the science of it and the reality of it, so people can discern from quacks and people who really know what they're doing. Did Tony Robbins? I remember going to Tony Robbins in 1989. I saw him when you could walk up stage and shake his hand if you wanted to. Did he bring that to the forefront did he mainstream NLP? Because I never heard of it before that, and I remember that was kind of his big thing there for a while.
He kind of did. I'm a huge Tony Robbins guy, Chris. I love Tony. He, when I was a kid, I was an asshole. I was lazy. I just, I wouldn't be friends with that guy today. But, he got me off my ass. He got me to believe that if you set a goal, you take action, you figure out if your action is working. If it is, keep doing it. If it doesn't, try something else. And that's NLP. That's chapter 1 in our book, how to make an outcome. So absolutely. I love Tony. I'm a huge fan. And while he didn't start NLP, as Josh told us earlier, was some scientist from San Francisco in the 70s, but Tony took it to the masses. He is filling up arenas, and he's great. I have nothing but great things to say about Tony Robbins.
Now, you guys talk about assuming good intentions, and people's brains are kind of hardwired to assume the worst. If they're out to get me, they don't care, kind of a victim mentality. And you guys teach how to overcome that and think from a different sort of perspective. Is that correct, or how does that flesh out?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the core beliefs that in NLP, we encourage people to take on and just presuppose in all contexts that everybody and every behavior actually has a positive intention behind it. And now somebody might be a total jerk. They might be doing something terrible. And we're not saying that those are good behaviors. We're not even saying that that's smart or the best way to handle something. We're just saying that there is necessarily behind it some positive intention. So maybe if you got someone who's being a bully, the bully wants to make friends with other bullies. The bully wants to feel powerful. The bully wants to, right? It's a positive intention, like a positive motivation to want to feel powerful or to want to make friends, right? But it's a terrible way to go about doing it. But now the thing is, it is serving them in some way. It's serving them in some way, but it's also making their lives more difficult and the lives of other people difficult. So when you kind of recognize that every behavior has a positive intention and you choose to focus on that, then you have tremendous leverage for helping somebody make a change, because they won't change unless they can serve that that good intention that they have.
Mm-hmm.
The bully's not going to stop bullying unless he can find some other way to feel powerful and to make friends.
Yeah.
But if you can speak to that, you can often help them move past the resistance or wherever you need to take them much more quickly. And the same thing for yourself. If you're not doing something for some reason, there's probably some something. It serves you to not do that thing. What is that positive intention? And if you address that, you're going to make a breakthrough.
Now, will that work for, I was laughing because I was thinking of, when I procrastinate. Is that something that can help me stop procrastinating?
How is it serving you to procrastinate?
Well, it's I don't have to do the work.
You don't have to do the work. There's lots of ways it can. The answers I've heard for procrastinating, it's like, well, actually, it means that I can lower the bar because if I only have a little bit of time, then the pressure's off because I lower the bar. Or it could mean like when I have to do something I don't care about, that gives me enough energy to do it because the pressure of the time there's all kinds of ways it can serve you. For you, it might be serving you because you don't have to do as much work.
It might.
I suspect we could dig deeper actually and find other ways it's really serving you even more.
Yeah. I did hear once though that creatives like myself and visionaries, they procrastinate because they're looking for inspiration. They're looking for that inspirational spark. And that's very true of me. I have to find the juice. And then once I find it, I'm on it. That, or sometimes I just have to go take the attitude that I've got to eat the elephant one bite at a time. I'm like, you got to get this done. But yeah, usually I put myself in a compression situation where I'm like, all right, you got a gun to your head. You got to do it now. Stupid.
So if you could find a better way to either put the gun to your head differently or a better way to find the inspiration while doing the work now, you'd be much more likely to do the work now instead of procrastinating. That's kind of the idea.
There you go. Any thoughts you want to throw in here, Greg?
Yeah, I think it goes even further than that. If you are in my line of work and in my life, sometimes I am in situations where there's conflict. And I'm sure that happens in everyone's life, be it our kids, our wives, our friends, our parents, whatever the case may be. If you can instill a belief in yourself that they're doing what they're doing for positive intention, you're not going to get as triggered. You'll be like, okay, they're not doing this to piss me off. They're doing this because they're serving their own needs. And that allows you to be more calm when you're communicating.
Does that work in politics? When I see politics online on Facebook, I can say, or just people are just being bad behavior. You can just say they must be doing it for some reason, I suppose. I remember when I was in high school, there were two twin bullies that used to bully me and my friends, and they were tall, so they kind of had the advantage of height and coming at you. And we eventually got into a scuffle with them, got sent to the vice president's office, and through that process, we found out that their parents were beating them at home. And so this was just, I don't know, an extension of their thing. But it was kind of interesting to learn that the violence was passing through, and maybe they just, I don't know, maybe you can say they had good intentions of some course or something or other, at least for themselves, I guess, and feeling better about themselves or something.
And I bet, Chris, after you learn that they were getting their shit beat out of them at home, you're like, you looked at them differently.
Yeah,
right?
It's true. I did, like victims. Yeah.
And it still didn't make what they were doing okay, right?
That's
the behavior
right.
still didn't stop, but you looked at them differently. You behaved differently, non-verbally. You showed up differently, and you drew the connection to politics. That's a big one. There's a lot of people listening that thought about that, I'm sure, right? And yes, this is one of the most profound things we can do right now to break through the divides that we have. When people choose to show up and say, you know what, I'm going to assume good intentions. I'm not going to say I like what this person's saying. I'm not going to, even if they're insulting me, right? Even if they're saying that there's something wrong with me because of my beliefs or saying I'm stupid, right? Of course, when we say that stuff, people shut down, they fight back. But even if they're saying that, I'm going to think about, okay, what could be the good intention that's driving that? If I can identify that, now I can suddenly talk to that person. I'm also getting less offended and less triggered, just like you were with the bullies when you understood more about them. That is how we can go about actually getting past this. I take pride when I discover that, when I see like some kind of like bling that's sitting out on somebody's phone or something, and I'm like, oh, you're the other political party, right? I take pride in pausing in that moment and thinking like, all right, let me try to think about this person as a person, the good things they're trying to accomplish for themselves by doing this. And like, and I tell you, it's like, it's so much better. I can have a conversation with anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are some other aspects of the book that we need to talk about that people should know?
Greg, I see you looking at me to start.
I'll jump in. That's fine. I think one of the biggest, we kind of touched on it earlier, one of the biggest presupposition, and what a presupposition is NLP, it's a belief. It's a belief that's inherent in your resident memory. Mm-hmm. And that belief being, if it's possible for him, it's possible for me. And what that does, it kind of makes us limitless. When you look at that belief, there's another belief. I have what I need inside of me to take the next step, not to accomplish the goal, but take the next step. And when you take these two beliefs, and for example, say I want to be a podcaster, and Chris Voss is a kick-ass podcaster. So theoretically, if I model Chris, if I take a chapter from the book, I ask Chris certain questions about what his beliefs are, how he views things, how he visualizes, if he hears, if he sees, if he feels, and I do the same things that he does. I may not be as good as Chris, but I'll certainly be better than I am today. And Josh, you're the smart one, so please redact or edit what I just said.
Yeah. You know, here's one piece I'll add to what Greg is saying. I mean, this is kind of the core. Other people have done things. Success leaves clues, but you do need to know what kinds of things to try to learn. So let's say we want to learn how to approach the world of podcasting like you, and have that kind of, right, and be able to kind of learn from that and build on it. So yeah, there's some actions that we can look at, sure. And that's typically where people go, though, because that's all you have access to. So you say like, okay, well, what steps has he taken? You know, he bought a microphone and he, registered on this and that, channel, right? And he started posting things regularly online, right? But I think we all know that if those are the only things you do, you don't really get somewhere. You're going to give up, you're going to peter out, you're going to kind of like, or just feel like, oh, what am I doing? This is hopeless and so forth. But I wouldn't be surprised if you have certain beliefs about what you do in those moments when you kind of get down that we don't necessarily have. So what are those beliefs? And maybe you're even thinking of one right now. Like if you ever feel like, like, hey, this isn't going where I want to go. What is something that you say to yourself?
I start looking for why is it bothering me? So what is the irritant point? And then I also try and approach, when I have dark times, I try and approach with gratitude. And sometimes I need a timeout and just maybe take a break. Maybe I'm driving too hard. So I think, I don't know if that answers your question. But yeah, I usually kind of look for what is the irritating trigger. Like, when you get triggered, and you guys talk about triggers, I believe, in your book, when you get triggered, some people just, they live in reactionary, low emotional intelligence, where they're very reactionary to it. Like, oh, what the fuck? And I've been guilty of that in my younger years. But we needed sound effects on the show. Thank you. We threw a good soundbite in there. But sometimes what I'll do is gratitude is important, but I'll look at the trigger and be like, why am I being triggered? What is the trigger going on? And, from that aspect, it's kind of a little bit of, is NLP a little bit of higher emotional intelligence?
You definitely get to a much higher emotional intelligence with these tools. Mm-hmm. And you said, I'll let me just pause for a moment. You said, I'll look at the trigger and say, why is that getting at me? Then the way you said it was a little bit of like, why is that getting? It almost seemed like there was a calm curiosity about it. Did I get that right? Yeah.
I try not to be triggered. If I'm triggered, my high emotional intelligence goes, "What's up, dude?
Right?
Why are you freaking out?"
I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people wanting to start a podcast would be more likely to go to like, "Why am I getting triggered? What's wrong with me?" Right?
What the fuck?
Yeah, and so like this is just one piece of what we call the mental model that you have about podcasting that we can try to learn from and do something we call modeling excellence, so that we can then help somebody else take it on. We need to unpack. I'll bet if I asked you questions about how do you see yourself when you're podcasting, what are you capable of, what's important to you, right? There's a lot of things that we can unpack about, and what do you do in this context, and what strategies do you have when you have a guest and it isn't going how you want, or when marketing isn't going where you want it to. There's a lot of stuff we could unpack, and those are the pieces that help us understand the mental model of someone who is really succeeding. We can contrast that with whatever mental model we have, and then we see there's a lot of options, a lot of opportunities. We might have had limiting beliefs. We might have been missing strategies. We might have been jumping to the wrong. Like, I have lots of times in my life when I can be calm and curious about something, but maybe I haven't applied it to this particular context. And so these are the kinds of ways that, because someone else has done it, success leaves clues, but you have to know what to ask for and you have to know how to ask. NLP helps you know what to ask for and how to ask.
And approach it from a way that's, it takes steps back from that conflict and emotional reactivity. I've learned that throughout all my life. If I'm on Facebook, we joked about Facebook politics and stuff online. If I see that sort of stuff, trying to not have that emotional reaction. A lot of people that have trauma have high emotional reaction, low emotional intelligence, and because it's sometimes whatever something happens to them that's similar to that trauma or gaslighting, et cetera, they react in the same way. And so, one of the things you guys talk about in the book is how to interrupt those negative thought patterns and the anxiety spirals. Anxiety spirals, that's something I know a lot of people need some help with, especially in 2025 when you go to the store and see the prices. How did the two of you guys get together and meet up? What formed this co-author bond between the two of you?
I owe so much of this to Greg. He was the one who planted the seed and got it going.
Did he sue you? And
right to
you guys became
No, stop it. I don't sue good people.
Important belief I'm seeing.
I took Josh's public speaking NLP class.
Oh, okay.
And there were 3 people in the class. I was certified in NLP 10 years ago. But one thing I learned from Tony Robbins is success is one of the secrets to a successful, happy life is constant growth, being better, trying to be better in some area of your life. Because, anything in life, if it's alive, it's either growing or it's dying. Nothing stays the same. So I try to improve, be a better speaker, be a better father, be a better husband, be a better friend, be in better shape. I always try to do something to be a little better in something. So I took Josh's public speaking class, and there were only 3 people there, myself and 2 other people. So we split off in an exercise. I was with Josh, and the other 2 people were with each other. And we got done pretty quick. We started shooting the shit. And I'll let Josh tell you what happened at that point.
Yeah, we were talking. Greg, I think you kind of pulled it out of me, but Greg was just like, interested in what kinds of vision I had and stuff. And I was talking about that other ventures I was looking for and different ways to teach NLP. And Greg kind of looks at me. He's like, NLP for lawyers. And like just in an instant, I got the whole thing. I was just like, wow, wait a second.
Yeah,
this stuff, you work so hard to learn it in an NLP class, especially, it's a lot of complex stuff. This is like real material that takes some learning and applying. And there's not that many people that are going to do it, but there's a lot of people that could use it. What if we just take it to them? We're going to focus in on your needs. You're a lawyer. You communicate for a living. Here's the specific context you're in. These are the tools. These are the ways you can use it, the ways you can use it responsibly. We're not making you an NLP practitioner. You're not going to be able to go out and say, hey, I'm an NLP coach, but you are going to be able to use it in your work. Right. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, what always happens is people apply it to their home lives as well. But and then as soon as we're talking, then it's like, wait a second. And then there's NLP for managers, NLP for, HR, NLP. Right. But that gap just hadn't been filled and certainly not in any satisfying way that we knew of. And then Greg convinces me, we start talking, and then he talks me into writing a book first, which I was saying, let's get the class going, let's write the book later. But he talked me into it. And then we realized it was a much bigger deal than we even realized, that this needs to be a book for everyone, not just for lawyers, for one group. And of course the classes, we focus on that with the groups, but there's a lot of people that really can benefit from this stuff when it's taught in a simple, easy way to apply. And we just felt like that didn't exist yet.
And the thing is, Chris, we use NLP every day, just that we don't know that we're doing it.
Yeah.
And, as lawyers, I would go to these conventions. People would say, oh, NLP, but nobody really knew what it was. It was just like, this nebulous NLP in the sky. And, but really top-notch, effective lawyers are using NLP without even knowing that they're using NLP.
Oh, wow.
And what we're doing is we're demystifying it. It's really not that mysterious. It's really not that complex. It's actually pretty simple if you break it down. Other NLP books are impossible to read. I don't know if you ever tried. If you read the books that were written by the founders, they're impossible because they're written for therapists. Oh. And I'm not a therapist. And for me to read a book written for a therapist is, I'm not going to say impossible, but it's very improbable that I'm going to finish it. Mm-hmm. And what we did, we really made it accessible to everyone. That was by the way, addition to the book. I took Josh's language and I said, we got to dumb it down, dude. This is for guys like me. We can't use big words, okay? So and that's what we did.
Just stick the and they and them. Whatever. Right. Yeah. I think that helps kind of democratize this better, as you guys mentioned earlier, where you can take in where more people can understand it, and we can avoid the pseudoscience folks who are like, you want crystals, you want NLP, both will make it so I never have to be self-accountable. Anyway. I love how that works. One final question as we go out that I have for you guys. You talk about helping create psychological safety at work and home. Is that to avoid the stuff that's coming at you? What does psychological safety mean at work and home? Does that mean my wife isn't going to ask me to take the trash out anymore and yell at me? It
means that when those things happen, because they will, right? Yeah, they will. It means that when those things happen, you don't have to get triggered in the same way you used to. It is actually possible to have a new automatic pattern that you get to where most of the time you're able to handle that and, either take the trash out or have the conversation you need about it, but in a way where it can even strengthen the relationship or not cause other triggers, right? That we actually can learn how to choose our emotional state. We can learn how to have new reactions. We can learn how to speak to what other people really need. We can learn how to identify what it is that might be bothering us about something and meet our needs another way. There's a lot of stuff. These things do matter. Like, they're ongoing things that gnaw on us throughout our lives, and they don't have to.
Yeah,
you really can. And one experience that Greg and I have talked about so many times in writing the book, we then go back and edit it, and we had to submit it at different times for the publisher, right? And each time we were having to reread things, and we would each time in the book, it says, think of a situation like this with a person where you are having some difficulty right now, or think of a situation like that with some goal, right? And so we just think of whatever was on our minds, go through the chapter, and by the end, have some important breakthroughs. I can tell you there are several things that my wife used to complain about that I would do that were really annoying, and she hasn't complained about them in a couple of years. Because, this book now we started working on 2.5 years ago, or started talking about it at least, right? There's several notable things. Some of them we talk about in the book, in fact, that have actually just changed as a result of just us doing that process. We just take a particular challenge or goal and work on it as we read the chapter.
Well, this should be very – go ahead, Greg.
I was just going to say, there's a thing in the book called universal quantifiers. And what that talks about is people tend to generalize. Your wife ever tell you always do this? Mine tells me this all the time. You always don't close the door. You never do this. And, NLP teaches you to ask a question, really? Have I ever done this? And that's a nice little pattern change, because when your wife says you never take out the trash, I'm like, really? Didn't I take it out last week? And wow. I understand that it's kind of silly, but it's enough to put her in a different state at that moment.
Yeah,
it interrupts the pattern for one, and it also just helps people kind of think about what's actually true, because when we start to overgeneralize, we tend to get upset. But it's also typically an overgeneralization. It's not actually true. So we help people kind of whittle it down. It's like, always? Really? That always or there's never been one time?
100%.
Or it's like, hey, everybody thinks this, or people will think this. Really, who specifically? Let's get down to that. And it makes it much easier to handle and talk about.
My favorite reply is, what are we negotiating? What is the problem? What is the real problem? Which is why I've been single all my life. Anyway, so guys, thanks for coming on the show. Final thoughts as we go out. Tell people on where they can pick up the book, .coms, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes. So the book's available at all the, all the places you can buy books. If you go to nlpdifference.com, we've also created some additional tools. Then, of course, there's links there to buy the book, but you'll see some tools that you can play with to get more into the book. We have some guided things where you can hear us kind of walking you through certain tools and techniques in the book, and some written things there that you can find. And the book's coming out July 8th. So if you put in the order now, you're going to get it pretty quick. There will be an audiobook version that should be out right around that time, too.
Greg?
I read a lot of self-help stuff. I always did. I read, the Brian Tracy's, the Carnegie's, the Tony Robbins. I read a lot. And a lot of these books are theory. This book, what's good about this book, we give you both. We give you the theory and the practice. As Josh said, at the end of every chapter, there is a set of questions. You can apply the concepts in that chapter on yourself. And once you get it in the muscle, it's a different experience. Because once you actually try it and you're like, oh my God, this shit actually works. It encourages you to keep moving.
This shit actually works. Well, I'm glad you guys have put out a book with a PhD behind it and the science and all that sort of stuff to break it down, because it really needs that sort of approach. We've had NLP practitioners on the show, and sometimes I've been kind of like, I don't know about all this, but and it seemed like there's some difference of opinions. So I'm glad we've put a scientific approach to it. Thank you, Josh and Greg, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Chris.
my pleasure. Our pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you. And thanks, Jonas, for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss and all those crazy places we are on the internet. The difference that makes the difference. NLP and the Science of Positive Change, out July 8th, 2025. You can get it an advanced copy right now, or if you're watching this 10 years from now, it should be on the show there. So thanks very much for tuning in. Go to facebook.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1, the TikTokity, all those crazy places in the net. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time. Sorry, Greg.